What are the other big issues from your perspective?
The other big issues in Nantucket? I think, I'm gonna have to tell you, after this election that we've just had, I think that it's clear that the voters, the public, that has a perception problem with what is or isn't right or wrong with Nantucket. And that is a huge problem because, and I've talked to Rick Atherton about this, and I think we're going to get a public forum. We want to have some sort of a public forum where people can come and complain, ask questions. People need to know how the town runs. They don't have to know everything, but they've got to trust their elected officials more. They've got to trust town administration. They've got to trust Plus. They've got to trust the fire department. They've got to trust the police department. They have to have a better feeling about things. Now, I'm not saying that everything is perfect, and I'm not saying people don't. There aren't problems with some individuals. I mean, of all people I'm talking to about that is you. But you were brought in to fix a problem, and you've done a good job. I'm just saying that, in general, one issue like the cab meters or some other issue can cause all of a sudden it's like Watergate. And there really isn't anything wrong other than maybe that one issue. So, and I've learned an awful lot with the steamship, I got to tell you. The steamship issues.
By the way, are you putting your name in again?
Oh, yeah. I've sent the letter in the first day I got it.
The Port Council?
Yeah, I mean, the Steamship Authority is a classic example of how Nantucket runs. It's very similar. We get all of our money from people that we don't look forward to them coming. In the old days, we used to say, we don't want the tourists.
That's right.
But we need them. They're paying for the boat to run so our kids can go play sports for $6.50.
They're paying for the schools.
They're paying for everything.
Yeah.
They are paying the bills for us. And so you have to, I feel that this perception issue is the biggest problem that we have. I mean, I know you asked me, you wanted to talk about more of like sewer or something like erosion and all that. I mean, all those things are a problem, and I definitely have my opinions about that too. But I think nobody cares about sewer anymore. Have you noticed that? Sewer is like done. Nobody cares.
It may come up again.
It may, yeah, but I'm talking about in the early 2000s.
That's right.
With the whole comprehensive wastewater management plan and the sewer plant and and all these issues were a huge hot button issue. Now it's who can get hooked up next.
Right.
Because they see that we want people to be hooked up to the sewer if they're in a needs area.
Right.
So that's all kind of gone by. I think this public-private partnership issue, I think this whole Stop and Shop issue is going to be something we really have to get our
Stop and Shop
head around.
downtown or Stop and Shop out of
town.
Out of
This
town.
situation at Mid-Island with the fire department and the issue with the FinCom with the $600,000, which it wasn't presented correctly. This is going to become something that's going to be a big topic because of the land at the Boys and Girls Club, and we're going to need to understand it. The public needs to know, and they will know, what really needs to happen in this area so that we get on board with, at least in most part, what's right for us. Similar to what happened with the old post office property, okay? That's going to be a nice project, and we got a lot from them. I'm pretty happy about how that's going to turn out. You're going to see a little road that goes into the Commons. Part of it, only one direction. It's going to be able to link people without having to drive around and things. So things are starting to come together in the Mid-Island. It's just very slow.
Let's go back a little bit and try to explain to the audience what's happening there in the Mid-Island area with the property that you refer to next to the Boys and Girls Club.
The Craig property.
The Craig property, which I think most people didn't know.
Well,
yeah, but that's a good name for it. We'll call it that.
The Craig
and
property.
then you've got the space in between where the Sea Grill and some other businesses are. Then you've got the Stop and Shop. Then you've got the fire department. What's the scheme there?
From a planning perspective, we don't want the eventual development of the Craig property to be not with Nantucket in mind, meaning exactly what we want there. We don't want something to be proposed there that people are against that would be the wrong thing. I call it the 7,500-year solution. Things that get done today, Dan,
they'll be around a long
they're
time.
going to be around a long time.
How big is that plot?
I don't know. I don't have the exact.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be an acre and a half, 2
least,
acres.
yeah, I would
It's
think a
pretty
couple of
big.
acres, yeah.
But the approved MCD that's currently approved right now is good. But that may not happen
For what?
for that like smaller market, or
That
with
seems unlikely given what
yes,
Stop and Shop's
Stop
doing
and
there.
Shop. That's right. They own it now. And they also own the piece next to the Sea Grill, the little piece that was owned by the Goaki. So this is going to be a decision that's going to take time with the FinCom, with the selectmen, with planning, with a work group that probably will be formed similar to what the police station, to what we want to happen here, so that everything is vetted privately, publicly, so that the community understands how important this is to happen. Okay, and unfortunately, a lot of times things come along you don't expect. I mean, we got a buyer for the Flying Cloud, Dan. We sold it. Okay, we sold that boat.
Surprise! Surprise!
When things
this is
come,
the old. For those who don't know, the old first fast ferry.
when things come along, that you got to sometimes you got to take advantage of that opportunity. Maybe not in the grand scheme of things with the town right now, but technically it may happen 10 years from now. So why not put it up to the front burner?
Presumably, one of the issues with the Stop and Shop and the Craig property is that they don't want somebody else, a competitor, in there.
I think it's more about. I think we already have the competitor that's Bowers Farm Market. I mean, when you talk about that and the competition issue, I mean, I don't want to get into that. I'd be here all day with another TV show. But the competition, it really is just being on Nantucket in a size of a business like that creates a monopoly de facto situation that happens on its own.
Right.
They're here. They bought Finest. If it was Star Market that bought
The
Finest,
same thing.
the exactly same thing. We would be asking for Stop and Shop to come here if Star Market was here. That's what we're like that on Nantucket. We kind of grow uncomfortable after a while, and we want change. We don't realize that we kind of. You can't just build a store here like that in today's market and not be able to have enough market share. So, I mean, there could end up being a small market like was proposed there, even if Stop and Shop gets what they really want. Because nothing can stop that. We don't want to stop that. I mean, a market could go up on Amelia Drive. There could be all kinds of different things that could happen. This Valero thing could have a small market. But in the end, we want the Mid-Island to have the right mix, and we want Stop and Shop to be able to exercise their building plan, their model to work for everyone in that Mid-Island. We want to kill 3 birds with 1 stone here, okay? And I think people are starting to get more acceptant of what happened with the gas station. You know, who would have ever believed that could look so good? Looks pretty good, doesn't it?
It does
you
look
know,
good,
and
yeah.
it's going to work. Once the the outlet to the exit there is a little bit questionable, but we had to do that because the project wouldn't have worked otherwise.
Let's go back to downtown for the last few minutes we have. You've got a situation now with a store that's being taken over by Stop and Shop as I don't know whether it's going to be a specialty market or just a small form of Stop and Shop or whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
You've got a parking lot that's some of which is controlled by the
Winthrop
landlord
and NIR.
and NIR.
Yep.
You've got the electric company behind, and the town has put up some pretty grandiose ideas about a redevelopment project, the Wilkes Square project. You've got a bunch of tanks there that have to go at some point.
Yep.
How do you see that process evolving, and what do you think the possible? Is there a possible solution? For example, you and I talked the other day just about an idea that I'd had of flipping the parking lot over to the other side of the.
Yeah. You know, Dan, it's all good stuff. This is a conceptual discussion. I mean, all the hype that came out of the Wilkes Square concept, because it was a concept. There was not a plan. No, there was never a plan like plan. It was a concept.
Right.
This could look like this. You know what I mean? There could have been 5 models. It could look like this. It could look like... We had one just because we didn't know that it was going to cause such a problem with this whole parking garage idea. But in the end, when we talk about the whole downtown issue, I think we've moved beyond this whole cars are the enemy thing. We've got the cab issue. We've got the direct shuttle issue. I think that the direct shuttle will become a reality at some point. I think that that'll be a private partnership between the steamship Highline and the town, or NERD, at some point. But the parking requirements under zoning, we're going to get rid of that downtown. It hasn't happened yet. We weren't ready for this year's town meeting. It's very complicated. There are some things that I didn't realize that we have to do with the state to make sure that it will go through the state to do this. However, that's something that we have to accept, that in order to get downtown away from this requirement of parking for every MCD that comes forward, or some change of use thing under zoning, like it did with the building that had the fire, all that controversy about parking. Imagine making a parking lot in their backyard. I mean, it would have destroyed the property. We need to be acceptant to a parking solution of some kind at some point in time. Your idea about flipping the parking is something that is actually, there is a sketch plan somewhere in some file. I've seen the picture of the third lane of the AMP parking lot. I call it the AMP parking lot, as grass.
The one closest to Main Street.
To the Main Street, so that we can have a permanent place for these events, like what's coming up in the next month and a half, because there really isn't a good place to have Fagawi, to have the Chowder Fest in the past, or anything that we might come up with. Stroll, whatever. And we need to have that. The problem is you can't take away 40 parking spaces to have a strip of grass and not have an alternative to those spaces. So all of this stuff is bubbling, and I think that there'll be some small solutions, but Stop and Shop is going to be able to be a player in our public-private partnership negotiations and relationship with these businesses. And Winthrop gets the picture now. They're not, they know that things are changing down there. They know that the tank farm is a dinosaur. We don't even need it anymore. We haven't for a long time. It's just that you can't just get rid of it tomorrow. The electric company is gone. It was only in '96 that we were making our own electricity. I mean, so you see that things are changing. It's just a matter of time before the right proposal starts to come forward. But
how much control do we have over the use of the electric company property?
Well, they have a freeze plan right now that's on the books. I think they got 5 more years, if I'm not mistaken. I could be off 1 year. But they filed a freeze plan to hold the zoning and what their uses are until, and that's absolutely legal and totally normal. It happens all the time where people own something and they know that things are changing, but they don't know what they want to do yet. So they have to do something to keep their rights, and that's what they did. So I don't know. I can't really answer that question definitively. I mean, but I think that establishing these relationships gives us more control than we already have legally. And that's what we need. We don't need any more Great Harbor Yacht Club situations. We need to work with these people. And I think we've moved beyond that, the old days of that kind of stuff where we get into lawsuits and so forth.
I guess the question to wrap this up is who are the right people to be having those relationships? As you pointed out earlier, the selectmen come and go. Is town administration equipped to do that? Should it be the planning department? Should it be the NP and EDC?
I think it's a mixture, and I think it's also some private people. Like you're going to be seeing some discussion about the tank farm issue coming up. When we did the police station, we had a local group. That kind of thing needs to happen more, because then the agenda question doesn't have so much validity. Okay, and that way,
you mean people's personal agendas?
Or perception of one. I mean, and unfortunately that's an issue in Nantucket. Everybody has something they know about somebody, and it grows legs at times. But in the end, I mean, we bought the 2 fairgrounds, $15 million. Whenever we did that, the police station is done. We know that was, there's reasons that it's so big. The state requirements and building codes are really complicated for public buildings, and I think that the fire station issue, as well as the Wilkes Square issue, will eventually be more acceptable once all these pieces are laid out for the public to see. This parking garage issue cause a division, okay? And it became a parking garage versus not. And that's not what this is really about. This is about what needs to go there.
Right.
What needs to go there? A hotel? Retail?
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of people that say we don't need any more retail. Then there'd be somebody else that would say we don't need a hotel. But something's going to go on that property at some point in time. And it's not going to be a tank farm, and it's not going to be an electric company.
That's right.
It's going to be something else. And we need to keep that, in place to where we understand that we need to work with these owners. I mean, we don't own it. And I'm glad we don't. They're paying a lot of property taxes down there.
That's right.
We need to keep those tax rolls going. That's another topic for another show, Dan. That tax roll issue is not a joke. We need to keep the tax rolls rolling, and like the yard sale program and things like that we're doing is extremely important to that. So
good. Well, a lot of good things to think about.
there is. And Nantucket's in pretty good shape right now. And as my parents used to say, there's always going to be work here, and they're right. They were right. There's always work on Nantucket.
Then there's the whole issue of housing for employees and so forth. We won't get into that now.
Housing issues 30 years ago. We just didn't say housing.
That's right.
We didn't have these words back then.
Thank you, Nat.
All right, Nat, thank you very much.
Thanks very much.